Alright, we're live again.
Hello, we are live. We are testing the sound. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Just getting things set up quick, and then we'll get right to doing things.
Yeah, we're good.
I am attempting to let this not be blocked.
I can't see the camera, so I don't know where I... Oh, I'm there.
Okay, let's get some links here.
So we're just going to send out some links quick, and then we'll get into things.
Oh, the link says explicit in it.
That's very accurate.
It'll be explicit, I
It'll
guess.
probably be explicit.
Okay, put this up in the chat.
It keeps. Okay, I'll just post
copy
the
the thing that she posted in chat.
Okay.
There we go, there we go. Can you bring it back on that thing so we can see?
Bring it back on.
And I'll bring up the questions everyone has. Yeah.
I feel like I'm watching a movie of my own life.
Is it a good movie?
Might be horror. It's explicit. That's the... Okay, it was me drinking Mountain Dew.
Sure.
Are we all
Working on it.
posted up? All posted up.
Go ahead and start, and I'll just be.
I
You
mean,
have
we
to
are started.
computer
I see
now.
Wade. Hi, Wade.
Hello, Wade.
From
News.
Midwest. I don't know if Art of Life is going to see this, but it is Art of Life's birthday from the WAD.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday in Australia, Art of Life. So I have no idea what time it is over there, but it's not 7 o'clock at night. So please eat delicious things today.
Halloween things.
Please eat delicious Halloween things. What's all this? So, where are my questions? Oh, guess who wasn't prepared? For what's its need?
None of us.
Hey, we're awesome. That's all we need.
Alexa's just searching YouTube over here.
Alexa.
What?
Alexa.
No, I'm not searching YouTube. I'm advertising our brand.
Our brand. Come watch Three Weirdos on
Come
Couch.
watch Alexa advertise our brand.
All right. I'll just put it like that.
There we go.
Bam.
Okay.
Be gone with that. That can go somewhere else. Okay. So, this morning we had an event.
Yes. Do we want to introduce ourselves?
I mean, we can. I'm assuming if they're here, they know who we are.
Just for posterity's sake.
Yes.
Oh, do we want to,
Um.
Azalia, our editor, hi, hello. Thank you for shining my books.
Hello.
I don't know if you can hear us because you're at work, so. But yeah, we can introduce ourselves. I mean, we're used to it by now.
We are Words After Dark.
Hi. Hello.
We are Writers Coalition.
I mean, you've probably seen us maybe several times by now, but that's okay.
I'm Alexa Windsor.
I am Ace Layton.
I'm Mouse. I have more names, but I mean, why would you need more names? Oh, hello, new people in chat.
Hello.
This is kind of like a really informal Q&A. You have questions, ask them, we'll answer them. If you want to tell us what you're working on,
That's totally
Yes.
great.
what are you doing?
We
for
love
Nano?
to hear what people are working on. So
Yeah.
Yes, this is the halfway prep for Nano.
Yeah. Or what are you doing for Halloween?
Mhm.
Like both. Like tell us about you, and then we're also gonna talk about us because we love to talk about ourselves.
Yeah, we do.
So we're gonna do that. Do you guys want to tell me what you're doing for now?
Who wants to start?
I guess me.
You can start.
Okay.
You were so proud that you knew.
So I'm writing a fantasy kind of romance story where it follows this diva who is fairly new, inexperienced, but very hyped to be like. She's a singer, and she kind of falls for this lady who is a kind of retired bodyguard type of figure. Very buff, very badass.
Buff vicious.
I was gonna say, I hear a rumor that your book contains fish lesbians.
Yes, I was gonna get to that. I was gonna lay it all out first and then slap the fish on at the end, but
You could say you were going to slap them with the fish.
Hello.
oh, it's good to
Hello.
have somebody from this afternoon.
Oh yeah, hi.
Yes, hello.
Continue.
So anyway, it's the singer and her bodyguard friend who soon becomes her girlfriend. And as she goes along, because she's kind of naive, she kind of piques the eye of some shady underworld people, and gets wrapped up in some nonsense. And the bodyguard has to kind of help her out, and then she ends up getting caught up in things, and it goes downhill from there. But it's kind of adventure, love story, and everyone in the book, at least most people in the book, are fish people.
Do you
No
want
complaints
to
here.
kind of elaborate on why you have an entire fish book? Why you have an entire book of fish people? Just ignore me over here.
Where to start with that? Well, we have a larger world, and it has a lot of different areas, and there's a lot of different kinds of people, and we are going to be writing a bunch of books that cover a bunch of the different areas, and
The area that you happen to be covering is
the
the
ocean.
water.
Yeah. So it's mostly some like fish people. There's some land people too. There's a raccoon boy and there's a wolf lady that shows up. But yeah, it should be good fun.
Yeah. I'm excited to read it. I get to read it before everybody else. I heard something about Mothman.
So I have had an idea about the Mothman that has been milling about in my head for many, many years now. I've been developing it for just as long. I just never really had an excuse to put it down. And finally, this November, my mom and my sister have a Monkeys with Typewriters page on Facebook. And they put up a prompt that was based on an experience that I had where I got into an accident one year driving home from college, and they were like, hey, let's take that and let's make it a prompt, so whoever is doing NaNoWriMo, draw on that prompt.
Fanfic you
Yeah.
into a Mothman story?
Well, okay, their ideas were all about dogs and werewolves, but because the accident fit well into my moth story, I'm taking the prompt and developing it with the Mothman in mind.
And to be fair, dogs and werewolves isn't exactly outside your expertise either.
Yes, yes.
So what's it about? Like, give us the lowdown.
It is
About
this guy who's moving back to his hometown, and along the way he has the accident. And he vaguely remembers 2 points of red lights in the confusion. He wakes up with kind of a case of conjunctivitis where his eyes are just burning and he can't figure out why, and they're really red. So after this incident, he's starting to see signs left behind, and he's starting to just experience weird crap. And along the way, he gets in contact through his childhood friend, the paranormal group in the university. They tell him about the Mothman, and he's like, wait, that sounds like what I'm experiencing. So he's going through figuring out what's happening to him, as well as, hey, if the Mothman, if that's what this is, what's happening in my hometown that's gonna be a disaster?
Is it fair to say, like hearing you explain it that way, that you can draw certain like trends between this story and like Marble Hornets,
Yeah.
because I can see some carried over ideas versus like him being sick in a way that isn't actually sickness, and is actually like a result of exposure to this, which I love, by the way. Like, it's one of my favorite horror tropes. I love it. But it does bring that to mind.
He's trying to treat something that he doesn't have.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because you can't treat curses with medicine.
No.
Although that
No.
would be a pretty interesting thing.
He's all about Visine.
He needs so much Visine. He just got these red, awful eyes. He's turning into Mothman?
No. Well.
You don't have
I
to
don't want to
spoil
spoil
it.
too
You don't have to
much.
spoil it. You don't have to spoil it.
I'll tell you guys later if you want to hear it.
Oh, yeah. I guess you don't need to worry about that.
I'm just trying to.
I promise you.
We can't. Me and Alexa can't see the lovely chat.
I can.
I am. Well, what happens is it doesn't keep
It doesn't
pace,
scroll.
but I have.
By the way,
have chat here in case people ask us questions, so I can keep an eye on it. I promise you're all being listened to, and you're all super appreciated. All of you wonderful, lovely people.
Yes. So if you have anything to say, you have to say it through mouse.
Yeah, if you want to scream, for example, Mahu says moth in my man. So I promise. Thank you. I think my shirt's awesome too.
You
by
have
the
to
way.
read what it says because we can't
Tesha,
see it.
Abigail says that I have an awesome shirt, and this is my Squad Goals shirt. It's got all of my beautiful LGBT flag ghosts on there. In case
May or may not have gotten it specifically for this live stream.
may have definitely gotten specifically for the live stream. In case anyone like wasn't super aware, WAD is super LGBT friendly. So yeah, I bought this for this live stream, and I'm gonna wear it every day. Should I talk about
What are you working on?
what am I working on?
You don't get out of it that easily.
I'm working on a book about assassins and thieves and polyamorous relationships and spider demons and genderqueer characters and fiery redheads.
What happens in it?
Somebody with too much money makes too many bad choices and then they get eaten.
sounds legit.
That's exactly what happens. For anyone who's read Ashen Path, this happens in the same universe. It's the second book out of a 5-book series that's planned. So I'm hoping to have it done by the end of the month, maybe.
We found it interesting that all three of us are basically writing about monster babes and falling in love with various monsters.
It's
this
the
month.
year of thirsting after monsters, if anyone has kept up with all the Bowsette stuff. So yeah, that's just we are weak and thirsty. So I'm gonna go to some of the questions I have. Do you guys remember
Boy.
what was the first book that made you cry?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't cry very often.
Unless it's at Moana.
Let's not go there.
Everybody cried in Moana.
Gosh,
I know
remember.
the first time I cried that I can remember. It was when I was reading The Goblet of Fire, Harry Potter, and Cedric Diggory died.
Yeah,
For some
it's
odd
like,
reason that hit me hard.
well, because like he's just like a normal dude.
Yeah.
He
And then he
doesn't
just got
deserve to
swept
be
up in this.
in all this bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on the live stream.
I think you are. It's
I
marked
mean,
as
it is explicit.
Oh yeah. But well, also, can we be congratulated for getting Wade out of bed, because his phone doesn't stream really well. So congratulations
Aw.
again, Wade. Welcome to the chat. And Jack is just beside themselves with hype for the Shark Babe.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Shark Babe. Yeah, that's, I guess something I didn't mention is they're not just the one girl is an angelfish girl, and the other girl is a shark, the buff Shark Babe.
Shark Babe.
We need to commission someone to draw these two.
Oh,
You mean I already have?
Oh, you have?
There has
So,
been pictures floating around
if
of
you're a
them.
person who likes art of characters, if you bother Ace on the chat, maybe he'll show you his beautiful fish people. Done by Reshi, who we
Rashi's
adore.
great. She's also in WAD chat.
And she did all of the art for both MK books. And she will be involved in upcoming projects too. She's fantastic. But yeah, so you cried at Cedric.
Yes.
Have you cried at a book?
I can't remember the book. I want to say, I can't remember. There was definitely one. It was in my childhood. It was a book about, I don't even remember. I just remember it had hunting dogs in it, and it was...
Old Yeller?
No, it wasn't Old
Was
Yeller.
it like The Fox and the Hound of books?
No, I don't. That movie's terrible. I don't remember, honestly.
But you remember being really upset?
Yeah, I don't remember the book. It's a good question, though.
Jack has a question. She also said she's gonna make t-shirts, but I'm not sure of what, and that kind of concerns me.
Whatever t-shirts they are, I want it.
Jack says, what is a book that made an impact on you, and why do you think that it had such a lasting impact? I can answer this before everyone else.
Go ahead.
The book, you know what I'm gonna answer?
No, I know my answer.
The book that had the greatest impact on me was Odd, the first time it was written.
Oh.
I'm
just gonna slink out of frame.
Get back here. Get back here. So, for those of you who don't know the story, about 100 years ago, Ace drafted up the first copy of Odd, and
it was a nano book.
It was a nano book, and it was it had some serious flaws. It was pantsed. The editing was really hurried. So it was put out, and there was a couple of copies printed.
It was an adventure, and they literally went to 5 different countries in the same book. It was all over the place.
But I really appreciated the characters that were in it. I really appreciated the spirit of the book, and it really motivated me to stop writing a bunch of half-finished projects and sit down and actually put a book together. And Odd was really instrumental for that. Enough so that I pestered him into letting me rewrite it, which I then did. But yeah, that was a super huge impact on me.
You know, I am going to say Bram Stoker's Dracula.
That doesn't surprise me. Tell me
It
why.
was the first book that legitimately creeped me out, especially the first half where it's all the newspapers and the journal entries of the spooky stuff. And that kind of it helped me realize that, hey, I'm a huge fan of horror when kind of in my youth, my parents were a little bit more cautious about exposing me to spooky stuff, except I watched all the paranormal documentaries I could get my hands on. And when I read Dracula, I realized, wow, writing can be legit spooky.
That was what nailed it for you.
That was what nailed it for me. So it's just one of the books that have had a huge impact on what I'd like to do with my writing.
I'm going to distract chat for a second and just be like, Alexa brought us Kool-Aid, and it's Scary Berry flavored, and that is my beverage of choice for this live stream.
It's mine too.
We're not sponsored by Kool-Aid, but I would take one. I absolutely would. I have no idea what this tastes like, but
it tastes like scary berries.
It tastes like delicious sugar water, but I'm fine with that. So Dracula for you, and what?
My answer is also not going to surprise you. It's not a single book. Actually, I'm going to pick 2. The first one is a series, and it's the Animorphs series.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me. That's a good answer.
I loved Animorphs growing up, and it was just very fun adventure book. People turning into animals to fight space aliens, and even though it was geared towards young adults, I think it did a lot of neat stuff with it was surprisingly deep because you're dealing with aliens that stole people's brains.
I never read Animorphs growing up, but literally everything I've heard about it from adult fans of Animorphs is them saying that it scarred them for life.
It didn't scar me for life, but
that's what I've heard.
You know, things
but it's
targeted towards kids and teenagers.
Coraline.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was the first one.
Emily wants to know, is Animorph the one with the brain slugs?
Yes, the Yerks is what they're called. Going through your ear and take over your brain and
brain worms.
make you a slave, basically.
No, thank. I don't want this.
But yeah, I had like teenagers turning into animals, which I thought was neat, and a bunch of
a lot
like.
of our RPs had people turning into plants and turning into animals. Those were popular.
No surprise, I'm writing a book with fish people in it.
Yeah, you were a fantasy writer from the get-go.
The other one also shouldn't surprise you, the Redwall books.
Oh, I know there's somebody in chat who's going to appreciate that.
I read them, and again, for both these series, I haven't read them for, I don't know, 20 years now probably, but so I have no idea if they hold up to today, but growing up, like, I was just really into, like, really neat fantasy things, and not just, like, knights and stuff, so those two series really helped.
Bringing back, like, the childhood book series, the Bailey Elementary School Kids, that was like a Goosebumps type series that I read a lot, that my second grade teacher read to us. And again, that was another spooky series that left an impact on me.
My little kid series was Series of Unfortunate Events.
Oh, yeah.
Because I read it.
I wish I had read that as a little kid.
It is. Sorry for everyone in chat, but our mascot is being bad. Stop.
Our kitty mascot.
But they were. What did I just say? Don't be like that.
Show everyone the Dewey.
They were really heavy books, but they got me thinking about a lot of stuff.
The Star, right?
The Star. Are you gonna be good with what you know? Maybe. Never. Jack says Coraline is deaf. I would like to make specific that the other mother is deaf. Because I love both the book and the movie. But no thank. Absolutely no thank.
The first time I read Coraline, I actually heard it on an audiobook.
Oh, that would be awful.
The narrator
awful, I mean great, but
did a really good job at like making like all the verses and stuff that come in spooky as heck.
Oh.
So that's what I remember from the book is the rats singing.
Oh,
yeah.
No thank. Let me see. I know we had another question submitted to us.
Shut up. I think I can.
Azalea would like to ask, how do you not hate your writing while writing?
I do.
That's not the answer we're looking for.
Okay, for the longest time, I had to write on NaNoWriMo with a blanket covering my laptop
I can
screen.
attest to this, yes.
Not because I was worried about anyone else seeing my work. I didn't want to look at my work.
Yep.
So, you know, they'd say turn off your inner editor. I find that's true. That's one reason why I like voice to text, is because I'm not putting down my words, my phone is.
And you can't go back and edit
can't
things.
go back and edit things until well after the fact.
Also, like, Ride or Die can help with that. With if you're sadistic and go with the no backspace mode, there's no backspace.
Which has gifted
option.
us with some really good typos that we still quote to this day, like 10 years later. Also, forgive yourself for sucking. You're allowed to suck. Everyone else sucks. If you really want an adventure, go to a bookstore and see how many books you can find that you think could use a little bit more editing. The answer's a lot. It's okay to write a bad draft. It's okay to write a bad book because you can fix it. You can work with that. Give yourself permission to be awful and then remove the moral judgment from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You are not awful because the thing you're working on is subpar. Like, you're allowed to put out subpar work.
From what you said earlier and today, there almost nothing is unsalvageable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I edit. That's what I do. My whole job, I edit academic papers and I edit fiction. And I've had some pretty rough work handed to me, but there's always something in there that's salvageable and that's good. We're all learning how to make these ideas or how to present these ideas in the best way. So yeah, everything needs work, and it's allowed to need work. That's okay. It's okay to do that.
It's a process.
It's a process. What else do I have in here? Okay, I was looking up some questions to go with the questions that were submitted to me. And one of the questions was, and we're not answering it, was what is the most difficult thing about writing characters of the opposite sex? And if you know anything about Words After Dark, you know we answer this question all the time, and the answer is nothing.
Just treat them as people. Just make a person.
People are people.
Give them all the complexities of a person. Don't treat them like categories, like stereotypes.
It's when people go out of their way to try and engender the other sex when they're writing them that they get into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've said it before, it's really just they're a person. Culture might treat them differently. And
Yeah.
the culture might react to them
That's
differently.
really where it comes down to. It is the culture in which you're writing those characters.
Mm-hmm.
Will have an influence on the way that they demonstrate. My tongue
Demonstrate.
I got distracted by my own face. In the way in which they conduct themselves. But when it comes down to it, that's just character building. That's not even gender specific.
Yeah.
So don't be lazy and get someone else to read over your work. I said we weren't going to answer this, but anyways, and get someone else to read over your work.
I can't
you're
resist when someone poses
You
that
must.
question.
Yeah.
You have to. I had other good ones. What is your writing kryptonite? What's the one thing that stops you in your tracks? What's the one thing that you can't write? What's the one thing that screws you up every time?
There's a lot of those. Starting a chapter is terrible for me.
More people in chat, so we're gonna wave. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
Hello.
Ask questions if you have questions. Tell us what you're working on, so we can congratulate you. Tell us what your Halloween plans are.
Yes.
But also we're gonna answer questions that were already submitted. So.
Starting a chapter, starting a blank page is one for me. And it's not just the page is blank. A lot of the time for me, what will happen is I won't know where to start, and I'll just start writing, and I'll get halfway through and kind of hit my groove, and then have to go back and rewrite the entire first part of the chapter because I thought of something that would work better. So I end up writing, instead of 25 chapters, I end up writing about 40-something because I write a chapter and a half every time I write a chapter. Another one for me is like figuring out how much description to put where, and when to tell the reader things and when to just infer them, and that's a fine balance. And it's something that I'm a very analytical person, so I would love to just be like, hey, here's this thing, and then here's all these 50 other things that you need to know about it, but that doesn't, that's not very entertaining to read.
However, if you wanted to put together words about this, we could put it on the website.
Yeah.
If something struck you enough that you wanted to do that, that's a thing that we could do.
Yeah.
I will put the slides from earlier for both our presentation and Zee's presentation on our website. I realized I owe them to the Oak Creek people. I realized that we have Oak Creek people in the comments. But immediately after the first presentation, I got sick. So I'm sorry, but I will get on that, I promise. Your kryptonite. What makes writing hell?
Editing.
No, not allowed to answer that.
No,
Mine
this is
was
writing.
What makes writing hell?
Writing.
Okay, so for writing, I have trouble getting myself to put words down. I don't want to put words down. I have words in my head. I want to plug my head into the computer so that the words will just go in.
We've joked about this before. The hardest part of writing for you is writing.
Is writing. Which is, again, like why I like voice to text so much. I won't shut up about that just because it's been such a huge help to me.
I mean, you put out 2 books that I've adored, so please use anything that helps. Yeah, I want more books.
Let's see. I had something else in mind, but I can't remember it now. So what is your kryptonite? It'll pop up again.
I don't know.
There is no kryptonite for Mouse.
That's not fair to say.
Word machine.
I will say that every time I hit a cap of 1,000 words, I think I'm going to die.
Every time you start the next 1,000.
Yeah. Every time I look at something and go, I have to write 1,000 words, I'm like, writing 1,000 words is impossible, and the ground is going to open up and swallow me. And that happens every 1,000 words. So for a Melancholia project, that happened 150 times.
Yeah.
So that is something I'm still dealing with, and I'm really not sure how to cope with that, like immediate intense despair. But I don't usually have a lot of things that stop me in my tracks. I'm sick a lot. That
Physical ailments.
physical and mental ailments stop me a lot. And sometimes I have a lot of trouble focusing. I would say that probably. Let's have that as my kryptonite.
This creature stops you a lot too.
Our resident lab.
She just got up and walked away.
You're not allowed to talk shit. What's wrong with you?
For those who are just joining the chat, we have a cat
In the vicinity of chat. So she's
chat.
around.
I remembered what my other kryptonite is.
Tell us.
We also have a question.
Comparing my style to others. Because
no.
I have a very bordering on simplistic style that it's taken me a long time to get over the barrier of, especially after coming out as an English major, to seeing what a lot of other people write as their fan fiction who have very flowery styles with kind of, I don't know, complex sentence structure. Purple prose. But like in literature fields, the purple prose and the complex styles are often held up on a pedestal, while they may not always be accessible. So in my mind, I've had to get over the barrier of, hey, having a simplistic structure is not a bad thing.
Can I say something about this?
I also want to say something about this.
I would never hold you being an English major against you because I love you too much. And I think it's to your credit when I say that I can't tell when I read your work. Because whenever I talk to people about the April Goddess books and about the new book when it comes out, when it's written, is I always immediately tell them that it's accessible, they're easy to read, they're a joy. Again, you're the only person to ever write texting in the way texting actually happens. But their accessibility is something that comes up every time I talk about them. Because I don't want to pick up a book for pleasure and have to slave through it.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that I can pick up work that you've written, and I can just get to the point. I don't have to like sift through like layers of material.
That's exactly what I was.
This is what's going on. And to me, like, it serves its purpose. It's more enjoyable. I understand it. I know the characters well. So no, I love it. Aww. Don't feel bad.
That's basically exactly what I was going to say. Basically, because I also like thought that earlier in my writing.
It can be hard when everyone's like, "Oh, this writing is so pretty."
Yeah,
and you're like, "My writing is not."
When you look around you and everyone else has different style than you, and you feel like, for whatever reason, there's a superior. But then, like, I would read something, or I would try and read something like that, and it really would make me realize that the kind of book I want to read is the simple. I don't want to have to sit there and puzzle over what the hell is this person explaining.
Yeah.
Like, I should be reading it to read it. So.
And there's a time and place for those. If I pick up a book that is like if I pick up a poetry book, if I pick up something like that, then absolutely I want to sit there and think about what I'm being engaged in. But if I'm reading an adventure novel, get out of here with that.
Yeah.
Like, I need to know what's happening, so stop with everything else. Are we gonna get?
Let's get a question. So Emily had a question. How do you keep your writing from getting too dialogue heavy? That seems to be my problem sometimes.
I mean, the downside of asking us that question is we're 3 character-driven writers with like 15 years of RP experience, which is very heavily dialogue focused. So we love dialogue. We do.
But I don't think I don't think you can qualify our work as dialogue heavy.
No. So hopefully we do have some answers for you.
For those who are unfamiliar, RP is role play, where it's basically you take two characters, usually in writing, and then you just kind of think of a plot line and have the characters.
It's like writing a story, but somebody else writes half the story in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great exercise. Do you have advice? I have advice.
You can go for
I'll
it.
keep talking.
I'm still stewing on it. Yeah.
I love to talk. Okay, so one of the things you can do to stop your work from being too dialogue heavy is to figure out, is the conversation necessary? Because one of the things about writing dialogue, especially if you have really enjoyable characters, is that you can write them talking about nothing for a really long time, and you can have a really good time, and your reader can have a really good time, but it doesn't get you anywhere. So figuring out if the conversation is important enough to have, and if it is important enough to have, is the correct length, can help you cut out some of your extraneous pieces.
I have some suggestions.
Do it.
So I think what I try to do with dialogue scenes in particular is I try to envision them, and that really helps if you envision the characters talking, because I don't know if you've noticed in real life, but most people just don't just stand and just talk.
If you've watched me in this
nothing.
live stream, you've noticed that I'm super fidgety and that I love to gesture. So
And that's us sitting on the couch.
yeah,
Well,
if I was
like-
standing, it'd be worse.
Most people in novels are doing stuff, so I find that helps a lot because you can break up a lot of the dialogue with stuff they're doing or stuff that's going on around them or stuff they notice or other things, and you might have the same exact length of dialogue, but
When it's
you break
broken
it
up, it has better pacing to it, where it doesn't feel like you're watching a ping pong.
Yeah, you don't just have like a block.
Yeah.
Of dialogue.
and for me, like, I just kind of have, I've been doing it for so long that I kind of have a thing that trips in my brain where I have, if I put like
This is
4
too many
lines of
lines of
dialogue and nothing else, it just kind of, hey, you need to break this up, or hey, you need to do that. But I think envisioning the scene can really help, because when people talk, they don't just stand statically.
It's like a movie
Gesture-
that goes on in your head.
Even
gesture setting.
even the way they say things, even a
Emotion.
few very simple dialogue tags can really break up a
Mhm.
bunch of dialogue.
Also nonverbal answers. Or nonverbal questions. Sometimes people ask and answer questions without saying words. And we do it more than we think. I mean, Kai's is an example, but he's a very extreme example. But yeah, so there are other ways to get your dialogue across and to do things like that that will help you break it up a little bit. I have more questions. Okay, this is an interesting question. In regards to writing, like as a writer, what is the best money you've ever spent? What is the one thing that you've invested in that has paid off the hardest?
Does the collection of writing books that I have on my bookshelf count?
And that absolutely counts.
Especially in my studies with creative writing and mental health. I have like a huge database of like writing and self-help books that have allowed me to kind of reflect on my biggest roadblocks and mental obstacles that come to writing. And it's helping me get over those and also transform that into ways that I can share with other people who might be suffering from writer's block.
Your mental health panel has helped a lot of people, and I've gotten a lot of feedback on it.
I'm glad.
It's been very
It sucks.
impactful. I thought you meant like your panels.
No.
What?
I like the panel, but I'm just saying that writer's block sucks.
It does. It's the worst.
A bit of an unconventional answer.
Mine is too.
But the plane ticket.
These two.
We're married.
Reunite.
We're married. But no, really, like all sweet stuff aside, like it is so helpful to be able to have someone to bounce ideas off of. Especially like for me, because I'm very analytical and I'm very like get in one track and get stuck sometimes. And sometimes I just need to go to Mouse and be like, hey, I have this grand plot idea and I think it's too much. And Mouse will say, yeah, that's too complicated. You just need to do this. Right? You can just simplify it into like this, and it's always just ends with me going, yeah, that's fine.
You're a very smart person, and I think that works against you, honestly, because you're very clever, and you think way too hard about things, and you just need to. And you're not the only writer I know who does that.
But no, honestly, like that's what I would say is because we always talked a lot before,
constantly.
But being in the same house, like I can just be writing and then just, hey, how does this sound?
Problem.
Or hey, can you read this and read this over?
Hey, where do I start my novel?
Hey, do my outline for me.
Yeah, hey, do my outline for me.
No.
What you didn't end up doing, but I helped. My answer was always going to be plane tickets. When I bought plane tickets to come down, because I made out like a bandit on this deal. Because not only did I get you, the love of my life, but I got you, another love of my life. So I got two really wonderful resources when I came to visit you and then when I moved. And I really have always written kind of in a community, I want to say. But writing around other people and writing in conjunction with other people is really where I do my best work, I think. Because I'm a content developer at heart. I just want to take everyone's ideas and make them the best they can be. So I really, really like working with other authors. And I also, I'm kind of a crazy person. So having people to talk to about various facets of being crazy, because I talk to you about both different reasons that I'm nuts, really helps me feel better, and that makes me more productive.
Dude, I talk to you guys about how I'm nuts. We're all nuts here.
We're all nuts here. Peanuts, walnuts, pecans. Let's see what else we got. Also, hello.
Hello, Coral.
Hello. We got hi, Coral. And you guys' questions have been fantastic. So
yeah, you guys' questions have been
But like,
great.
also tell us more on what are you guys working on? What are you using this stream to procrastinate on? I know at least one of you should be studying. Two of you actually. I know two of you should be studying.
Well, technically, we're not procrastinating on writing yet because it's not November. But we are procrastinating on prepping.
I have work I could be doing. I'm not doing. So let's see. Okay, this is a good question, and I'm looking forward to this. What's your most interesting quirk in your writing?
Quirk.
Yeah, not the Boku no Hero Academia version. Nerd cred.
Interesting.
Is it a stylistic quirk or
Anything,
a quirk?
anything. What is the most, like, if somebody picked up a book, they'd go, this is an A. Slayton novel.
Okay, people with special powers.
Every time?
I mean, not every time. Like, my Nana book isn't necessarily that.
Not your favorite thing, but the most you thing.
That is kind of the most me. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's not a valid answer, but
I can see that, though.
strong ladies.
Strong ladies is a very you thing. I was also going to say
adventurous ladies.
Like low-key, tart, sarcastic dudes.
Yeah, yeah.
Who are not necessarily the star of the show or even the strongest person there, but just that temperament.
I really wonder why, because I'm kind of low-key.
Tart and sarcastic. But yeah, strong ladies is a very...
Strong ladies, I guess, is the biggest thing. Almost every single book, actually probably every single book I ever write will have a strong lady of some kind in. Also,
the character of yours that I borrowed to write Lost Names is the buffest lady on our team.
Yes, Rosa.
Rosa, beautiful Rosa Sylvia. So yeah, I think that's a good answer.
I mean, actually, like MKE is actually the least amount of strong ladies, I would say.
I would argue it has the least amount of buff ladies.
But that's just because you had Zig in the first one.
I have Zig, but also you have Zig and you have Emma.
You have a lot of ladies that stick with people. Like, they're memorable characters.
Yeah, yeah.
And Emma is a strong lady waiting to happen.
She's a strong lady bean.
She's a strong lady bean. Gotta plant it and wait for a strong lady to grow.
Yeah.
Alexa.
The sheer amount of dogs and cats that I have in my work.
Dogs
They
everywhere.
pop up in my horror books. They pop up in my mystery books. Throw in some monsters here and there.
There's a bunch of people in chat getting mad at me for calling you out. No. I'm not. I won't say sorry. I love you. But that, I mean, so far, do you have more? Are there more animals in the new book?
Yes. The main character has a dog and a cat.
So the trend continues.
Yes, in the Mothman book. In the April Gladys books, there's always dog cameos and cat cameos going on, because I was a dog walker in Chicago for 3 years, so I like to sprinkle in the dogs that I handled and love very much. So.
Yes, dogs are great. Dogs are
Yes.
good people.
What about you?
I don't know. I know there's a specific sentence structure that's been pointed out to me that I use a lot. I don't remember what it is. Mahuhu in chat, you were the one who pointed it out to me. If you remember, feel free to tell me, but I don't expect you to. But I'm not. I like to play with gender tropes a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To no one's surprise. So like that's a thing you usually find in my work. I was gonna say, do I have a book that doesn't involve that? And I was like, oh, odd isn't wholly my work. Odd involves that in a big way.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I was at fault for that one, but
but I think that would be it. I have ways of writing, like I know, like technical, the way I organize words that sound very much like me. I use Canadianisms, which occasionally throw people off. I've had that happen.
Your books are in Canadian spelling.
Yeah, I spell my books with Canadian English. I'm
Which
the only
is
person
wrong.
allowed to do it.
Nonsense. That's a thumbprint.
Coral, I did that, but I only did it once. Please don't slander my good name.
What did they say?
Yeah, what did they say?
Coral says a typical a mouse quirk is the plot flipping back and forth. But I think.
Oh, is that just lost names?
I think just lost names is responsible for that. Which I almost tore my brain into trying to keep both of those plot lines coherent.
I mean, you could say a quirk for all three of us is we're super character driven.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we just love them. The number of characters that I have strong feelings for, just out of the three of us we've created, is like outnumbers all the people I've ever met, let alone people I have strong feelings for. And some of you guys in the comments I've been lucky enough to write with, and you know of all the strong feelings I have for your characters as well. I'm just full of them. I'm full of feelings.
That's why we tell you to share your things with us, because
Yes,
we
we
actually
love
do
them.
care about things. You give us things to love, and we will love them.
Mm-hmm.
I will scream about them endlessly. Actually, Emily has a really good question. She says maybe this is a little premature since your project isn't started, but any tips for publishing? The first tip that I have is just to try and figure out what kind of track of publishing you're looking at. If you're looking at traditional publishing, there are, I have some resources on my Twitter, and there are some other resources online that are really handy for that. But we, as the WAD, won't be the most useful. We're all indie published.
Self-published.
You kind of need to look at the pros and cons of both and figure out why it is you want to publish and what you're looking to get out of it. Because obviously, like, traditional publishing has more reach. But also you have to jump through a heck of a ton of hoops to get to that point.
You will have to deal with rejection, probably.
You'll have to deal with rejection if you're writing more of a niche story that doesn't appeal to a lot of people.
And that's one of the reasons that indie appealed to us, is because we do kind of write niche stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of LGBT content without the stories being about LGBT subjects, which people find notoriously hard to market. We also like being able to do this, where we can brand ourselves and we can do live streams and we can do cons.
You can't do that if you're self or if you're published.
If
there's more rules.
Yeah.
If you go the traditional publishing route, you will probably have the benefit of having like professional editors and professional formatters.
There are more contacts.
You will, but at the same time,
They're
you will
going to
have
tell
more
you what to
rules
do.
about what you can and can't have in your book.
And that's personally something that bothered me. It's because I want to be able to tell the story that I want to without somebody going, this isn't going to work for our audience.
Yeah.
Well, I want to tell this story.
Yeah. So your audience will find you.
But if you're going along the lines of like self-publishing, it's very easy. It's really not that difficult?
It's a matter usually of managing your costs and figure out what you can do for yourself for free versus what you should pay for. You can probably format your own book. You should definitely pay for editing, for example. And the other thing that comes up a lot is, how does this play into marketing? If you are a new small-time author in a publishing house, you will still be responsible for a lot of your own marketing. The good news is that when you start to gain traction, if you start to gain traction, they will usually bump up what they give to assist you because they want sales. When you're indie, it's always your responsibility, but also that means that you have more flexibility, and it really depends on what one of those appeals to you more.
One thing is, you do kind of have to be careful as an indie author, because there's a lot of companies that try to take advantage of indie authors. I know I had one when I put the first odd out that contacted me that was like, hey, we'd love to spread your book around, and they were saying all this stuff, and it was totally them just trying to get money out of me.
Yeah, be careful. People want your money. Be careful. Protect yourself. Get a second opinion. This is an off-topic shout-out, but I just saw this comment now where Abigail said that my quirk is adorable, lovable boy characters.
That might be true.
I make a habit. This comes down to me playing with gender. Is I really like to write male characters who have a lot of emotional emphasis, because I'm sick of male characters who don't.
Honestly, yeah.
That's
Me
kind
too.
of the inverse in that. Because I write the strong ladies, and you write the sensible, sensitive boys.
Sensitive boys. Not that we also both don't have the other one.
Yeah.
But it stems from a lack of being able to readily access these things. So yeah, thank you.
We write the stories and characters we want to read.
Yes. I'm gonna see what else I have in my list. What do I have in my list? Okay, this is an interesting question. What does success look like to you?
When I get out a book.
I mean, when do you consider yourself a successful author?
I mean,
when you write words.
For you,
when you share words. Yeah, that's my thing.
You put out a book.
I put out a
people
book.
Read it. You're successful.
Yes,
that's fair.
That's like my cornerstone. I just want people to read my stuff, and even if they like it or don't like it, I'll feel like I've told a story.
You did the thing.
That's my thing. I did the thing.
Yeah, mine is along the same lines. If I put out a book, and one or two people, either in the WAD or other people I know, come up to me and say, hey, I read the book, I really liked so-and-so, or I really liked this, or I really liked that, I consider that a success. Because largely, I'm not writing for other people. I'm writing because I want to tell these stories. So if I can write something for me that somebody else can enjoy or draw something from, that to me is success.
So now is a good time to bring up the fact that one of your readers wanted me to shame you into a pit for making him cry forever.
I think two readers.
Oh yes, actually.
One is in the stream.
But yeah, there was a formal request to shame you into a hole.
MK is a tough book. Okay. It's a sad book.
It is. I mean, it's in the title. I warned everyone about the Melancholia book.
Yeah, everyone yells at me because the book is so sad. And I was like, it's called Melancholia. So.
Yeah, the Melancholia books are sad books. Sad things happen.
But yeah, as long as I can put it out and one or two people can enjoy it, and I count that as success. I can't even say the word.
Mine is slightly loftier. Because I agree with everything that you guys have said, 100%. Being able to put out a book and having someone read it and be like, the fact that you wrote this and I got to read it means a lot to me and I really enjoyed it. That is success. But we've also had something else happen.
Oh, yes.
That to me was like the icing on the cake. And I don't know if you guys know.
The WAD?
Well, I mean, the WAD in general. But there was a panel we hosted at Conaltdale or Midwest. It was a how to do villains panel, and it was the first panel.
Midwest.
That was Conaltdale.
It was the first panel we held that they had to close the doors and there was
Yes.
people
In the
standing in the
Standing
basement.
room.
only.
We filled the room and had
Mhm.
no room for anyone else, and it was our first time running the panel, and we had minimum notes, and we had a riot,
Yeah, we had a great
Mhm.
time.
and that was one of the things that really,
Well, you
Showed
achieved your
me.
goal.
yeah.
You
well, I
wanted
didn't even
to-
know it was my goal.
That's another thing. Like, I wouldn't have thought of that because I don't
I only
consider
realized
that-
it in retrospect.
consider that as part of being an author.
And then author goal.
But definitely, like, the community that we have fostered through Words After Dark, like, I could not be happier.
There's so many talented people.
Mhm.
Most of you people in chat are from our Discord, or we talked
And
before
most
writing.
of you, we did not, like, go out and recruit. It's people that
You found
us.
us.
You wanted,
and we love you
yes, you
for
wanted
it.
to become part of the community.
So that's something I really love is, I mean, we've had discussions where, you know, we've looked back on the WAD. We're only, what, 2 years old
Yeah, WAD
at
is
the very
cute.
most? I think 2 years
old.
as of Anime Midwest this year.
Yeah.
Maybe it's only 1 year. I don't remember.
It's 2.
It's 2.
Because I've been here a year.
Okay.
And the
Yeah.
first time we did this, I didn't live here.
So just that is really, and it's really just kind of grown on its own, and everyone is really supportive of each other, and I love seeing everyone's work.
There's so many talented ideas brewing in there. I know some people are held back by school, some people are held back, by other constraints, but there are like 10 really good books that are just brewing in Words After Dark
And-
Discord, and I can't wait to
And
read
I
them.
don't
Really
know, I
excited.
don't remember who it was, but someone mentioned to me, like, you guys do really good moderation. And I remember thinking, I hardly have to moderate at all.
Yeah. People are excellent
Yeah.
in the Discord.
Every once in a while, we have to be like, hey, we're having this wonderful discussion, but we're having it in the wrong channel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but like
that's
that is
usually
the
the most-
extent to the moderating we have to do because our community is so good.
You know, there is one more personal goal that I have.
Tell me.
Before I die, I want to write all of the gay that I can.
That's a good
so
goal.
that this world will be slightly gayer.
In the words of Thomas Sanders,
Mhm.
it could be gay.
Yes.
Also, Mika would like to say that we have beautiful decorations. Thank you.
You can thank Mouse for this.
Yeah, for
Beautiful
our
decorations.
beautiful spooky Halloween setup here. We are lucky enough to have Alexa up here for about a week with us to do this and to do Halloween stuff.
I'm normally based in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
And we hate it. But that we're gonna fill this week with like Halloween things. We're gonna play spooky games. We played Visage last night.
It was terrible.
Ace hated it. He
I
died.
curled up on the floor for a bit.
I had to take over the game.
The next time I see a flash camera, I'm gonna have PTSD.
We have a bunch of other games that we're gonna play. So it's kind of a tradition. One that predates me, and then I get really warm, fuzzy feelings about being able to
Yeah,
participate in.
because me and Alexa used to have a tradition of Alexa coming up every single
It's
Halloween.
been
You
going
guys
on
go
5 or 6
At least
way back.
5 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you guys are friends from baby times.
Mm-hmm.
Baby time.
Baby
friends.
times.
Middle school, junior high school.
I left all of my baby time friends to St. Catherine's. I'm sorry to everyone else at St. Catherine's. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry. I love you. I wouldn't want to be left there.
Oh.
It's a terrible city. It's always on fire. Here's a pretty typical question, but it's one that I like. What's something surprising you learned in writing a book? Also, we're at time. Do we want to keep going?
Yes.
Okay.
There's no need.
Okay.
There's no need to call it. People can come and go as they please,
Okay.
and we
Okay.
can just.
We'll go for a little while longer. I see people's beautiful emojis. No, we're not leaving.
We're not.
We're not
leaving.
leaving.
We're not
We're
leaving
not
just
leaving.
yet.
We're not.
No,
leaving.
we're gonna hang out a little bit longer. We only meant to stay an hour, but we have lots of content. So if
Mhm.
you guys are still here watching, we'll keep talking.
Yeah.
So it's something surprising that you found
surprising
when you're
that
writing
you
your book.
found. Something surprising. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Something surprising that I learned is that when you like writing your thing, it's going to flow. And it's okay to jump to the scenes that you really want to write, because those are just going to be like candy.
Yeah, there's no rules.
There's
Anybody
no
who tells you
rules.
there's rules is lying to you.
I kind of have two things, I guess.
Tell
They're
us.
very different.
Tell us your two.
The first thing is surprised at how useful outlines are.
Mhm.
So I don't know, most people probably don't know my history, but I did nano in high school while I was in high school, and then a couple of years after high school, and I made a bunch of manuscripts, and nothing ever happened with them because I was a pantser. I did not use outlines ever. I like to just go, and then after nano, I would have these 50,000 plus word
Of nonsense.
stuff, and it had a lot of good content in them, but I could never, like, editing them just seemed like such a monumental task.
I just want to take a quick break here to read Jack's comment. Jack says, I hated outline until I did it and it helped, and now I loathe it. It's true. We're all in the same boat.
I was doing a lot of the nanoing at the same time that Ace was during our high school years. And so I'm in the same boat where I have a bunch of drafts that I never did anything with. And part of the thing that I want to do before I die, besides put as much gain into the world as I can, is go back and try to reshape those drafts, because they're just sitting there. And I want to finish them at some point.
But
so
anyway,
I'll go back with the knowledge that I have.
Anyway, so I was doing it in high school. I did it for 5-6 years. And then college came, and I didn't do any nano in college. In fact, aside from role-playing, I pretty much stopped writing. And then, was it the first year we did panels at Anime Midwest? On the way home, because Mouse had a Melancholy Project was out by that point.
Yeah, I was.
Which is a book that was based on one of our role plays.
I had Melancholy Project, and I had a book called Bright Stories out that's no longer available.
So we went to Anime Midwest. We had, I can't remember if we did panels or not that year. But anyway, we went to Anime Midwest. We were surrounded by all these creative people. We went to Russell Lasow's panels and heard a lot of good stuff. And I remember being in the car on the way back, and I turned to Mouse and said, I'm writing a sequel to Melancholia.
I remember this.
But I wanted to do it right. And so Mouse showed me a lot of things with the kind of outlining they do, and I adapted that for my own stuff and wrote an outline, and turned that into a book 4 months later.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful.
So that's really the first thing. Is it's super surprising how much an outline helps. The second thing was I kind of touched on it in chat a few times over the last couple weeks, but I realize a lot of the things that I do in writing, I do without really realizing what I'm doing. And it's just a lot of like small stuff that I don't think about, I just do. And occasionally I do think about it, and then I'm able to like point it out. I'm trying to think one of the examples.
I'll cut in while you think of one. I try to do a lot of content dev, and part of doing that is talk to people about the way in which they write things. And sometimes that happens where you're just going along writing, and someone goes, "Wait, haven't you considered?" And you go, "Oh, I guess, yeah. I guess that is a thing that you do, or I guess that is a thing that you don't do." Because so much of writing is just off the cuff that you're not always tuned in to the technicalities of it. And as like a really analytical writer, discovering those things tends to be very satisfying for you.
Yeah, I think one of them was villain chapters. I was talking about how
your villain should be strong.
I really like
chapter.
Villain chapter. A lot of my books do like jumping perspectives and have chapters that are focused on the villain, and I never really thought about the kind of utility they give you. And just that sort of thing. I didn't realize that I was doing it and also doing it for other reasons other than just the fact that I like writing like villains. But yeah, just stuff like that. I'm always amused when I can put my finger on like a process or something that I've been doing and put words to it.
Mika would like to add that that he too wishes to write all the gay. So you are far from alone in your request, as if you had any doubt. Most surprising thing
As
I've learned.
or
Yeah.
I can't say her name.
You can say Azzy. Azzy, you know who you are. Azzy,
I can't
Tack,
pronounce it.
Azalea,
Azalea.
Azalea.
Azzy says, "Did you scream when I told you I was writing a sequel to your book?"
It happened, I believe, slightly differently than you recall it.
Oh.
Because I remember being in the car and you being like, I'm going to write a book. And I was like, hell yeah, you're going to write a book. Because it was after Russell Sau's panel. Russell Sau is a comic writer. And he's a very good speaker.
He's
and
a very good speaker.
We really enjoyed
We don't read a lot of comics, but
no, especially not like those kind of
he did a lot of like writing life panels. They're very good.
And he's a great dude. And you said in the car, I'm going to write a book. And I was like, perfect. I'm super excited. And then it wasn't until we got home that you said, I'm writing Melancholia.
Yeah.
Because there was a bit of a toss-up at first if it was going to be that. If it was going to be what we drunkenly call the Meg book.
The Wild Book.
The Wild Book, which is something that's still...
Which is now a series.
Yeah, which was going to be a series now too, because we don't know how to stop. But it wasn't until we got home. And having someone volunteer or having someone tell you that they want to write a sequel to something you've written is a very strange spot to be in. I mean, it helps that we've written together for a decade and a half. It helps that we're married. It
also helps that the book you wrote was based on a world and characters that we created together.
It grew a lot from that. But it still is handing off this project to another author who does things differently than you do. So I was very happy, and I felt very safe, actually, is what I felt. Because if anyone was going to write a sequel to it, it would be you. And you managed to... This is how I normally describe... Because I wrote the Melancholia Project, and you wrote the Melancholia Effect. And how I normally describe it is that the Melancholia Effect distilled all the best parts of the Melancholia Project. It is half the size, about. It's much smaller.
Project is huge.
Project is a big baby. But Effect... is a great entry point if you don't want to quite commit to a book that size. And it does all the things that I prided myself on in Project. It does it in half the time. So I could not be happier, honestly. I was thrilled at the time. But I didn't worry. I wasn't worried for a second. I was not concerned. I had no concern at all. As you are the woman of 100 names. She says all the names. So I'm still trying to figure out the most surprising thing that I've learned while writing. I can't spell. Is something surprising that I learned, and I can't properly punctuate dialogue. Thanks, Azzy, again, my editor. I'm getting better at it.
Your editing notes are indecipherable.
My editing notes are indecipherable, which is not really a surprise for anyone who's seen my handwriting before. Mahoo says you could probably harvest enough tears to fill the sea from me reading the MK series. You'll be happy to know there's a third one in the works.
Aww.
There is a third one in the works.
Yeah, it's a prequel.
It's a prequel to Project.
So yeah, we're back. We're back to the shadowy subworld. No sunlight in this
Before there
world.
was a sun.
But I mean, it sounds really awful to be like the thing I'm most surprised about in my writing is how terrible I am at it. But
I don't know. I think there's a lot of... I think you also... I think everybody does it, but I think you also write something, put it out, and then despair over how it's not as good as you want it to be, and then you read it. Like, you will go back and read it, and
I feel very seen right now. No, he's right. I did that with Melancholia Project. Because especially one of the issues with Melancholia Project is I had to re-release it because it got art and it needed to be tidied up.
And it was a beast. Like, it was turning an RP into a book.
And not only is it a huge book, but also when I had to re-release it the second time, it was using a corrupted file. So like I've spent many sleepless nights over that book for no reason because it's fine. There's like one error in it, and
I've got both editions.
Oh, you fancy. But Joe, one of our dear readers, found it and pointed it out to me, and it's a relief knowing that there is really only one problem, so I'm not super worried about it.
Jackie has a question.
Oh, yeah.
Do you keep cutscenes that you are proud of, even if you know they won't be of use?
Keep everything.
Yes.
Keep everything.
Yes.
I have scenes that didn't. Lost Names was big on this for me because I wrote Lost Names out of order. But
I mean, the difference is if it's something that I take out of a book because I think it's trash, I generally won't keep that. But
because you usually replace it with something that does the same thing
Yeah.
only better.
yeah, or it's just completely unnecessary and not. But anything that is good, I definitely keep it.
That advice, kill your darlings, is BS.
It is. It's bullshit. You can swear here. We're adults.
But this is bullshit.
I love hearing it.
If I like something in a book, I'm gonna keep it because I like it. And if anyone has
You can
problems
definitely
with
tell
that,
Alexa doesn't live in our house because we just let the swear fly.
I have been a negative influence on both of them. I am very Canadian.
I definitely swear way more than I used to.
But yeah, Kill Your Darlings is a very short-sighted, like kind of advice. The way it should be applied is if you think your affection for a scene overextends its use, then maybe you want to look at how it can be retooled, or if it can be shifted around or somehow other way fixed to be more useful for what it is. But there's an entire chapter in Lost Names that I wrote more than once. It's the Haston and Rosa chapter, for anyone who's read it. I wrote it
I actually
once.
did not know that.
I wrote it once before I wrote the book because I had the scene in my head and I really liked it. Because there's a lot of emotion in it. It was really good. And then when I got to writing that part in the book, I realized it didn't quite match up perfectly because there were a lot of things that had already been explained, and there was a lot of things that needed to be led into. So I ended up rewriting it. Both versions are good, actually. Both versions do a wonderful job. The second version leads into some of my favorite jokes in that book. But I kept the original. I had the original as well. And I have a couple of scenes written for the Lost Names sequel again that I might not end up putting into it. But yeah, absolutely save them. If only to read over yourself later and enjoy. Like, that's not a bad thing. You saw the comments and I did. Who says Lost Names also the leader for books that have rendered me a useless mass of weeping man baby buddy. For those of you who don't know, Mahuhu is a dear friend of mine, and also the person I go to emotionally test basically all of my work, because he's full of feelings. But he also has a really good way of crafting sentences. I appreciate that wholeheartedly.
He's also excellent at coming up with terrible monsters.
Oh yeah, actually, credit where credit is due. Who is responsible for a lot of the monsters in both of the Melancholy books. That's such a niche fucking skill set to have. But it's true. That is where a lot of the ideas came from. So thank you. You're the best. Let's see what other questions I have.
Another thing that surprised me is how dogs and cats can be characters. Like,
oh yeah,
I wouldn't just put
you do that very well too in your books. Is you're like the specific dogs and cats they have personality.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I learned in Chicago was what kind of different personalities they can have.
And that's
so
something
that kind of shaped my writing.
That's something I really liked in that book, actually, because your books are not usually my genre.
Mm-hmm. No, we're both reading out of our genre when we read your books, and they're great.
But they are so good, just because, like, you not only have April and you have, I forget.
Jennifer and Chase and Mark.
And you have all of the dogs and all of the cats. And they all are their own personality. They all interact with April in different ways, and it's just so good.
So another question from the list is, what are some like common pitfalls for aspiring writers, and how would you suggest they navigate them?
People who think that everything has been done
Everything
which
has been
is
done.
true. But the thing is that when you're going into it, don't be afraid to write it anyway,
That
because
shouldn't
you're
stop
going
you.
to leave your thumbprint on your work.
Are
Something
we,
that's
are we talking
uniquely
just
you.
writing, or are we talking books?
Anything.
Well, there's,
Anything creatively.
well, I don't care about rules. Give the answer
Because
you
they're
want to give.
two very different things.
Let's start with writing, and if we move on to books, we'll look at the books. But let's start with aspiring writers and things that they get hung up on. And how you suggest it.
Don't let other people tell you what to write.
Absolutely not.
Because I know that was something for me. Like, I write a lot of very fancy, like, different kinds of people. I mean, I write queer stuff. And you're not usually encouraged to write that kind of stuff when you're a kid.
Let's break the mold.
But it wasn't until like I really just started playing around with the kind of ideas that I really wanted to write that I think I really got a passion for it. And you write so much better when you're really into it.
Yeah, when you're feeling it, you do write better. I was gonna say my biggest advice for aspiring writers is to ditch the aspiring. Just do it. Like, there's no reason. You're never almost a writer. You're either a person who's writing or you're a person who doesn't write. So you don't need to be an author. You don't need to put work out there. If you want to be a writer, be a writer.
I guess another thing I would suggest is write for yourself.
Absolutely.
If you are going out and you want to write said book because you want to publish it and you want to get famous, or you want to write it for a specific group of people, you should always be writing for yourself first.
Writing is not guaranteed to make you famous or to make you rich. In fact, it's pretty much guaranteed to not do either of those things.
That's pretty much luck of the draw.
Yes.
The people who are famous came along at the right time with the right content
And
to
had
get
the right
famous
connections.
and had the right connections.
There are some writers out there that I know personally who create very high quality work that I feel really does deserve to be seen by more people. But the connection isn't there to get it to more eyes. That doesn't mean that the work is bad. That doesn't mean that the work isn't worth it.
And honestly, that's fine.
Yes.
That's
Because it isn't always about that.
as long as it's something. As long as they're writing because they love it.
Yes.
Because they love what they're writing. It's people I see that are just doing it for the fame or the perceived fame, because I don't think there is a lot of
Get
fame
a lot of
going on.
actual fame.
But I know a lot of first-time authors go into it thinking, if I can make this thing that's really good, then I can put it out there and I'll be famous. And everyone will buy my book. And then they get really disappointed, really turned off when they put out their book and people aren't nearly as excited about it.
The people who think that they're going to write the next American bestseller.
Yeah.
And then
write something that you want to write something that you want to read, because in the end you'll be happier. It's really a big thing.
Yeah.
What else do I know? Do you guys have things that you want to answer? Because I have dominated this conversation. Because I always do.
You had the questions.
I mean, I was the one preparing for this. This is an interesting question. What is an early experience you had where you learned that language had power? This is a more thoughtful question.
Going along with maybe more of the theme rather than words, the fact that so many people of color, I am white, so I can look at a lot of media today and see myself, like other white people.
Words After Dark is very white.
Yes, but seeing the experiences, especially after I joined Tumblr and just started looking at blogs on the internet, people of color saying how they're nervous to write books with main characters from their culture because they think it's not going to be accepted. And that really made me go, we need more representation. of not only, race, creed, culture, religion, LGBT themes.
Yeah.
That stuff has power. And when people say, oh, we don't need that, that's just pushing an agenda, that's bullshit. We need more representation.
Anyone who likes to accuse you of having an agenda for just having the simple desire to write a diverse cast should probably take a long walk up a short pier.
And if anyone says, oh, I'm not going to be able to relate to a character of color.
Oh, they should absolutely take
When
a long walk
I
up a
was
short pier.
in elementary school, I would wake up every morning and watch a show on Nickelodeon called Moesha. That was following a black teenager and her family. And you know what? I saw my family. They were suburban. They were middle class. I had no issues relating to that family.
We lucked out growing up because we really grew up in the era where they pushed diversity. But it was nice. It was nice being able to turn on the TV and seeing a lot of content for young people that was for young people of like a whole bunch of different kinds. There is something to be said when you're a person writing a book to be careful of the kind of story you're telling.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are working with those pieces, to make sure you work with them respectfully, especially if they're not your pieces. But that's something that you can do where you can have sensitivity readers and you can do research. So that really isn't the end of the world. But yeah, learning about that being a problem is definitely an eye-opener.
Having people from other, the culture that you're writing about read it. And
Yeah,
tell
have
you.
them tell you all the things you do wrong so you can stop doing them wrong.
Okay.
Sorry, I just kind of looked over at you.
Looking at you like a bunch of birds.
I guess the only thing I can think of is what originally got me into writing is you wouldn't ever know it now, but I used to hate writing as a kid. I used to absolutely hate it. And then I took creative writing in high school, and this person suckered me into doing NaNoWriMo for the first time.
So what you're telling me is that Alexa is to blame for the entire WAD.
Yes. It's all Alexa.
Did I do that?
But really, like, it was kind of very eye-opening. And then, like, after I did Nano, I started getting into RP and getting into character-based writing. And it was really just kind of eye-opening that, like, you can do whatever you want. Like, you can... They're your words to put on the page, and no one is going to tell your story or the story that you're going to tell. And it was just kind of, it lit a spark, I guess. And ever since then, I've been writing and coming up with characters and brainstorming characters and doing that sort of thing. And it really, it's kind of scary to think about that if that hadn't happened.
Who would you be?
I would be infinitesimally more boring.
It would be endlessly boring.
Yeah. But yeah.
So my first experience of language having power, I'm gonna try and talk about this in like the least depressing way possible. So I didn't have a good time growing up. I had a pretty terrible run of it. And I started writing to tell myself stories because I wasn't happy. And they provided me immense comfort. And that was when I first started to realize that maybe I could provide that for other people. And that's really what the goal of what I'm writing is for. It's really to take the comfort I make for myself and to share it. And it can be powerful, and I've had people tell me that they've really connected with my characters. I've had people confess to me that they read what I write to make themselves feel better when things are hard. And that's really all I could ever ask for, honestly.
You write about a lot of people finding families.
A lot of people find
friends.
families. A lot of people work past some kind of physical or mental illness. There's a lot of
You
acceptance
write a
going on.
lot of families that aren't blood related.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder why. Because I have one. I have a wonderful one. But I do. I write a lot of found families. Because there's something very forgiving about writing about people who deserve to be loved being loved. So maybe that's my quirk. Maybe that's the most quirk. I write a lot of found families. Jack would like to ask us: are there things that you love to read that you don't like to or cannot write? Things that you like to read that are not in your genre or not in what you usually do.
I can usually push myself to like challenge my boundaries.
I'm gonna say I don't normally. This is not quite an answer to that question, but I don't normally read mystery, and yet. But honestly, a lot of my daily writing is not, or a lot of my daily reading. Reading? Yes. A lot of my daily reading is work related, and even when it's not work related, it tends to skew towards academics. And I haven't done academic writing in a very long time. I don't read a lot of fiction these days, not nearly as much as I would like. So not quite exactly. I would more say, I mean, poetry is an example. I love to read poetry. I can't write that shit to save my fucking life, though. Although we wrote a beautiful poem today as a team.
Lost in space.
We wrote a beautiful poem.
Do we
about being
still
lost
have
in space.
that?
We do. It's right over there.
Should we read it as, like our goodbye
Our goodbye.
for the live
Lost in
stream?
space. We wrote it. There was a challenge at that everyone pick up.
He only had 50 words or something.
Yeah, that you had to write.
By the way, this thing says booyah.
I love it.
This little ghost friend has been hiding this entire time.
We're just ghosts.
We're just hiding.
It's a ghost party. So yeah, like there's things like poetry is an example of something that I love to read. They can't write. But generally speaking, I actually all of my reading time goes to authors that I know, which sounds super pretentious, but I only have so much time, and I know everyone that I know writes really well. So I'm gonna read these guys, or I'm gonna read one of the other authors in the WAD, or I'm gonna read Azalea Forest, or I'm gonna read another of the other wonderful people, because like I don't have enough time. I wish I did. I wish I had more time. I would spend it sleeping.
I also don't read a lot, as blasphemous as that might be. I guess the one thing I can say is I really enjoy listening to podcasts, and I like listening to crime and true crime podcasts, and there's no way I could ever write
I think that's a fair comparison.
a crime or true crime book. There's just no way. But I do really enjoy it. I like studying why things happened and how they happened and things after the fact. But that's definitely not something I ever had the desire to write. I am much more in the fantasy camp.
I will watch the occasional sports anime. That is something.
Are you a haiku person? Are you a free person?
I like free, and I like
I
Yuri
don't
on
know
Ice.
either.
Oh yeah, I
Of
forgot
course.
about you.
I don't
But I
either.
don't usually write sports stuff. So,
I think it's
engaging characters are going to draw me into sports animes, regardless.
I mean, I was gonna say I watch giant robot anime and I don't write giant robots. That's kind of a lie. I do write giant robots, so I haven't published them yet, but they exist. So what else? What else? Favorite underappreciated novel, and I'm gonna add the rule that it can't be one of anyone's
I
sitting on the couch.
just said
Okay.
I don't read a lot.
But it could be one that you grew up with that you enjoyed that wasn't super famous.
I'm currently listening to Mog World on audio by Yahtzee. He does the Zero Punctuation series. That doesn't have nearly enough credit as it needs because it is hilarious and I love it. It's like kind of it's very British and it's fantasy and it's basically a deconstruction of like the fantasy genre. But it's awesome.
There There was a series of 3 books called The Long Night Legacy by Dennis Foon, and I almost think I hallucinated them because I've never met another living person who read them, who didn't get the books from me. And it's not that they're necessarily phenomenal books, but they were very imaginative, and they were, it was really interesting to see the kind of ideas that were shown. It was, they're very, like, they really carry you through the plot, so you don't have to struggle and try and figure things out. It's very story-driven. But I really enjoyed them, and it's a very weird experience having read them and loved them so much, and having literally never met anyone else who's ever heard of them, ever. But yeah, they're called The Long Night Legacy. I forget what the first one's called. They're by Dennis Foon. They're pretty good. They're pretty interesting. Honorable mention goes to a vampire novel called Suck It Up.
Raccoons.
I don't know if you guys on the stream can hear that, but there are some screaming raccoons outside. Do you have an example?
I don't think I have an example.
That's okay.
Not one that I can think of off the top of my head.
That's okay. I made it harder by saying it can't be our books. Fairly easy one. How do you name your characters? Because I guess some people have a lot of trouble with that.
I either use baby names or I take a walk through a cemetery.
That's very good. Yeah. I usually use behind the name if it's.
Let's rephrase the question. Not what resources do you use, but how do you decide on the name? What are the deciding factors?
I'll feel it. It'll hit me
Yeah,
when I like the name and the character. You just feel
Slaps you right in the face. Yeah, usually I go by impression.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I have a certain kind of feel that I'm going for a name, and I don't know, I just find a name that I like.
I tend to be more on the research side of things, in that I like to try and figure out kind of where my character might be from, if they're from either someplace in the real world or someplace that acts as an analogy for the real world. I did a lot of this for Lost Names, because a lot of that was written in reference to like real world situations. So I try and go, okay, if they're from there, what is the kind of name that they would have? What might that mean? What is the purpose of it? So I do try to do those things. For fantasy names, I really do go by feel. I'll match some letters together and see what comes up. And the thing about names is, the general rule I try to find is it has to be pronounceable. Your readers should be able to figure out what it says. And like I have a couple of Chinese names and Lost names. So I count those as pronounceable. You might need to look them up, but they're names that exist and you should be able to pronounce them. But with fantasy names, you really don't want to make them too much of a puzzle to figure out, because your readers have to read them over and over again, and their little head voice has to say that name.
The other thing is you got to realize you're dealing with the people in your story are actual real people, and they have to say this person's name.
Yeah, so it has to be sayable, and also it has to be something that's said often. So the name probably isn't going to be this long.
Yeah.
Or it might be this long, but they're probably going to call them by this much of it.
I can't tell you the number of times when I read a book that has like kind of a long, complicated name, and the voice in my head that, goes on reading it will just turn it into Al.
It just becomes like this adult Peanuts noise.
Yes.
You don't want that to happen to your characters. You love your characters, right? So name them things that people can pronounce.
Or if you're going to give them a long, complicated name, give them a shortened form of that name.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shortened forms are really big for me, because I think about people in real life, and most people, if you have a longer name, you shorten it to something.
Yeah.
It just naturally, whether the character does it themselves or other people do it, it's just something that naturally happens.
And another thing to consider with that is a lot of that has to do with characterization. If your character has a longer name, assuming it's a longer name that can be said, do they not like the familiarity that comes with having the name shortened? Do some people shorten it and don't? Do they think of themselves in that kind of way? So it is another tool that you can use for characterization.
Yeah, it's very... something I wrote the other day had one of my people, Freya, who she would murder you if you shortened her name.
To be fair, she has a nice tiny name already. However,
Fray.
Michael would like to shout no apostrophes in names. That's not universally true. If you can apostrophize a name and have it still be pronounceable, I'm willing to forgive you. But I would say be wary of putting random apostrophes in your fantasy names. Because that is a thing people do.
Are like a lot of cultures that have apostrophes in the names, but if you're doing it just to make them unique, go ahead and rethink your naming conventions.
Here's an interesting question that we can try and answer in a spoiler-free manner.
Mm-hmm.
Do you deliberately hide secrets in your book?
Yes.
Like, you're talking Easter eggs?
Yes.
Like Easter eggs that not everyone is going to find.
Yes.
That's actually going to be a big part of this NaNoWriMo book.
Depends on the book. Depends on the like Melancholia Effect definitely has small things that only some readers will pick up on. I don't know that I quantify them as secrets necessarily. Definitely Easter eggs, but just small things that are related to either the first MK or maybe they're threads that you don't see at first, and then you can put them together and be like, oh, that's. I don't know that I have anything planned for the new book, but I think with series, especially, I think
I hope everyone can ignore my yawns. I'm not tired. I'm just a yawn factory.
it's kind of unavoidable,
just
because we, at least I know me and Mouse, or all three of us, I guess, tend to have expansive universes that we place these novels in, and those secrets just kind of come from outside things that don't make it into the book.
From having a lot of material.
What I meant about my book is because I'm drawing so much of the lore for my Nano book about Mothman from the actual Mothman lore. There will probably be things that people
who are familiar
with the Mothman lore will probably pick up a little easier.
This is an interesting question. Jackie asks, along those lines, do you think it works to do a big reveal for or of your main character, or in relationship to your main character, I suppose it might be? Or is that more trouble than it's usually worth?
Do you mean like a plot twist?
I was gonna say MKE has a big reveal.
Yeah.
But it has nothing to do with the protagonist. I think that's another thing that you really have to finely balance, because a lot of like what might be set up as a reveal, if you stretch it out too long, people are just gonna get sick of you. If it's too short, nobody has time to be curious about it.
Speaking as someone who has done it, it's very tricky to do correctly, and you have to be very careful with how.
Just clarify your question.
Oh.
Like a plot twist involving their identity.
I've actually seen this be done. It was in a sequel to a work, and
like a revealing of a secret heritage or something, like the Luke, I am your father kind of thing. Is that what we're asking about? But continue with your thing.
It was like the sequel to a piece that took place in the same universe, and we didn't know that the main character was somebody from the first book who had changed their appearance and their identity in the second. And it only came out in like the second to last chapter of the thing, and you were like, holy crap, this makes so much sense.
So that was set up really well.
That was set up well.
I think you really have to be in love with your payoff if that's what you're going to do.
Well, your payoff has to fit the tone of your book.
And that too. Because some books having a big twist like that, I think it would, like, you could do it, but it wouldn't.
I think some books do it unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Some books do it very badly, where either they show too much, or they make it too big of a deal out of it on the lead up.
There's kind of a culture of plot twists right now.
Okay.
Where people will try to do plot twists just for the sake of having a plot twist.
Specifically in reference to your novel, Jack, because we're familiar with it, my honest advice to you, because she's your primary, and because she knows about both those things, it might be easier for you to not do it that way. But I think focusing on surprising that other character will probably pay off better, and put your readers in the position of enjoying his agony as he doesn't know.
Yeah, so the question was basically, do you include the audience in
the joke,
in the reveal,
in the secret that your main character is?
And I think that's a case-by-case basis thing.
Yeah.
But the good news is that you're in chat, and we can talk about that at length.
Yeah.
And I would love to, honestly. But I mean, I've heard about that setup, and I'm really excited to read it, even though I do know. So I think
Sounds
you're probably
great.
safe. We are very excited for Jack's book, and I don't know if you know to be excited, but you should be excited. For
I am
Jack's book.
excited. Excited for all the books.
I'm just teasing.
Jack's book has my number all over it.
It does have your number all over it. Sword fighting ladies.
Yeah.
Um,
Redhead ladies.
Well, therefore, it's my number 2.
So another question is, what do you find to be the hardest kind of scene to write?
Action sequences.
Combat.
Action sequence. I don't know what my answer is, so tell me why you take them. Tell me.
It's just very hard to. It's very hard to balance between like making it interesting for the reader to read without getting too far into the details of it. And you really have to decide, like, it's tricky to decide what you want to go for it. Because it's not just as simple as you saying this and this and this happened. Like, you're framing it the whole time you're writing, you're framing it in a certain kind of light or a tone, and you kind of have to decide, like, how much of it you want to show, what's important, and then you have to write the actual action, which is also not one of my strong points. So I guess that's why.
It's knowing how much detail to put into, like, how many sword hits should I narrate, or should I just cut that out and say they exchange blows, or if they're exchanging gunfire, who are they aiming at now? Should I include that? Is that too much? That's what I find hardest.
Jack says that I can do the calm parts of her book, and she'll do the fighting parts of my books.
And I'll do your outline.
It's a deal. It's a
And
deal.
it'll be done. Combat sequences are hard, especially because even if you do them mechanically, if you write them out literally blow by blow, your reader will not be able to follow it.
Or they'll just get bored.
Or they'll get bored. So even if you know what's going on, that really isn't the most important part of that equation. It's how do you translate that movement to your reader
It's really striking a balance of what's going on and
versus how it feels.
versus how it feels and how your character feels and how.
A lot of people like long action sequences in movies, and other people will be bored by long action sequences in movies.
Actually, one of my favorite examples of this is something that Tesha posted, where I think it was Tesha, where she posted this piece where I think it's the character Tesha riding into battle.
Yes.
And she or her horse gets hit by an arrow, and she just immediately goes out. And that's, the entire battle happens without her, and
Yes.
she wakes up after it. And it's just kind of drives home the point that you don't need to, like, that's obviously the most extreme example.
But
But it drives home
however,
the point that the world goes on even if you're focused on your character.
on
and
this
they don't,
specific little thing.
and they don't. And I think a lot of people can benefit from that. Is write the battle from your character's perspective, and then it becomes a lot easier because you only have to worry about what they're dealing with. Anyway, what's your answer for
My hardest thing to write?
that one? Yes, it was. But see, it still stuck with me.
What did they say?
It's just like, oh, that was a while ago.
Yeah. But it's still stuck with me, and that's why I remembered it.
I don't know what my biggest challenge is for writing. I don't know what kind of scene I find the hardest. Do I bitch about any specific kind of scene? I'm not sure. I don't necessarily enjoy writing action sequences.
You don't like action sequences.
But I feel a lot more competent with them now, and they don't really seem to bug me anymore. They're not my favorite.
I'll get back to you on this question after Nano. After
yeah, and see what I complain about.
Just take a tally of all the things that she complains about.
Yeah.
And we complain
The times
about
that I
do.
just say fuck, they just go in their own category.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what to attribute them to. But I'm not really sure. Like I said, I don't necessarily enjoy action sequences, but I feel like I'm a lot better at them now, so they don't bother me as much. I do know. This doesn't necessarily make them hard to write, but I do know that I do this. When I'm writing a sequence that is heavy in emotion, I know I tend to overwrite it, and then I have to go back and tidy it. But I still really enjoy writing them. I like writing sequences with a lot of emotion in them. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Writing is hard. Writing is the hardest sequence, always.
What?
Who says that I struggle with writing bad books? Which is very kind of him to say. And Jackie's asking if we're going to do a post-Nano live stream.
We can.
We will have to figure that out.
I might have to Skype in.
Yes, because we're going to be kind of short a critical member of the WAD. So we'll have to see. I like gesturing like this because we have a monitor up where we can see what's going on. It's super funny. So maybe is the answer. Because
If we're not all comatose.
yeah, we might be dead.
Yeah.
Like everyone might be dead. We might be dead, and everyone out there might be dead. So, I thought I had another question. One of them was about how long does it take you to write a book, but I think that really varies.
It really varies.
I don't think that that's a good question. I think that's a dumb question.
It can take anywhere between a month to 8 years.
Are you counting? Is that book 3?
Actually, book 3 has taken about 2 years, 2.5 years.
We're willing to wait. We are.
Well, especially because once I'm done writing it, I kind of have to examine the legal stuff of a few things going on, so that might delay it.
Regardless, we're getting a hot Mothman book in the meantime.
Yes, yes.
So if you're one of those many people who want to date Mothman again, there's a reason Alexa's writing it after all. But yeah, we can probably wrap it up at 9, so we have a couple more minutes.
Do you guys have any more
Yeah, do you guys have more
Yes.
questions?
Or tell us about what you're writing.
Yeah,
or-
so we can scream about it. But you guys have given us some of the most insightful questions. So
Yes.
Yeah.
we've really enjoyed them. And we have Z's in chat. We love you. Z is our ML. And she's a fantastic ML. And we'll be seeing a lot of her the next month. I'm gonna bake you a lot of things, Z. Yeah, let me see if I can think of
I have a question for you.
what
What's your favorite part about NaNoWriMo?
my Z.
But you did NaNoWriMo before Z.
I did. So this is gonna be because of that. You're gonna have 2 different answers. You're gonna have a
Post Z answer.
a post
Free
Z answer, a free Z answer. And
Z didn't know she was gonna get called out like this when she.
No,
joined.
you didn't. You should have been warned. So back when I used to be in the Niagara region, and we had a small group there, and it was nice. And like, I always say the thing I like about Nano is how productive it makes me, but that's really kind of boring. So before I moved, the reason I like Nano was because it gave me lots of excuses to go to Fine Grind on James Street and have the hot chocolate
Hot
there.
chocolate.
Because it was really good. And then I moved here and I discovered Finca, and their hot chocolate's really good. So I like Nano for the sheer amount of time I get to spend in coffee shops. I just really like coffee shops. Z also jokes, come for the word, stay for the Z, and it's completely accurate. But I love the community. I love being productive. I love eating all this delicious food. I'm hoping that we're gonna go to Write-ins at Finca and I can have delicious Mexican hot chocolate. Like, it's really the small things in life make me very happy. Like, I really don't need much. So what about you guys? What's your favorite thing about Nano?
What I like about NaNoWriMo, aside from the fact that it can actually make me write words, is I really like seeing the characters that I've thought up be put into action. Like, especially this year where I've had a lot of characters in there that I've been, you know, they've been mulling for a while, you know, over the last several years, and so it's like, hey, now I can actually play with these dolls.
And there's something great about making a character and showing someone and having someone be like, that's mine now.
Do you find that the kind of like bomb format of 11 months of preparation and then Nano helps with that?
Yeah, it can actually, what I find is that a lot of the development that I think I've done actually gets turned on its head, and this character who I thought I knew, I didn't know.
But you still love them.
But I still love them. I love them more.
What about you? What's your favorite thing about Nano?
It's probably the community. Both the community we have with our group. I went to write-ins when I was in college. I was in the DeKalb group, and we had just a very small group, like maybe 8 people that would come to stuff. But it almost felt like family.
Yeah.
And everyone was very encouraging. And then I moved here, and I joined the group here, and same thing. We're larger.
Yeah.
But
I don't know how Z handles as many animals.
but yeah, both the Nano groups and how, like, I was amazed how supportive Words After Dark was last year. All the people in Words After Dark.
I don't know if I'm right, but did everyone who started Nano last year from WAD?
I don't think everyone. I think I tallied it up, and it was like 9 out of 11 people finished.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
That's amazing.
It was ridiculous.
I remember we had a really good turnout.
It was yeah. I tallied up, and like the amount of words we wrote was well over the amount that 11 people should have written.
I helped.
But yes, I was honestly like, everyone was super supportive, and that's, I think, the thing that really helps me the most in Nano is everyone else being super supportive, and
it's amazing how much that affects a solitary thing, because writing is a very single person activity.
And for me, I find a lot of my interaction is online, because the jobs that I've had in the last few years never allowed me to go to like write-ins, and now that my job is ending, I'll actually have some time to go to the write-in, so I can get to know the people Nano in Arbor. So that's what I'm excited for.
Except for their kickoff party.
Except for their kickoff is tomorrow, and I'll still be here, but at least I got to attend one kickoff party.
Jack asks, if you are doing a work in progress for Nano, do you include prior written scenes in your 50K? I don't, because for me, a typical book clocks in at around 75,000 words. So I am I'm working on an in-progress novel right now. So I'll start my 50,000 words when I start. And ideally, my goal is to finish the book at the end of the month rather than to hit 50,000 words. So it's more that my goal is my total than my goal is Nano itself, I guess.
Kind of the same, yeah. Last year was a bit of a special case for me because I was already in the midst of writing MKE. And I had written, I don't know, maybe 10,000 words before October. And then I used October to be kind of a mini Nano, and I wrote another, I think, 25K. So I had like a little over 35K to go. So I ended up doing less for Nano and just scaling that up so that it was, so I was writing less than what it would be for 50K.
Yeah, you got off easy.
But I counted because I was doing it for 2 months.
Yeah.
Like that's But this year is more traditional. I
Yeah.
haven't started this book. And generally, the years where I do work on something, I don't count the prior work towards the 50K because that's the whole point. Is to
Yeah, you
Yeah.
start at 0, and then hopefully, like, I'm gonna start at whatever I'm at, and hopefully my goal will be 80K.
finish the book.
Finish the book. But I won't, for Nano itself, I won't count more than what I do in the month.
What was the question? Like, how is it worded?
If you are using Nano to pick up on a work in progress, do you count the words you already have done?
Usually no. I think one time I did do that, and I just started it with the block that I was writing being the 50,000 words added on to what I had previously.
Yeah, we pretty much, Mouse and I do kind of fixed length books, so our nanos always tend to be 50K unless you hit the end of the book, and then it's
Yeah. The goal for Nano is less write that number of words and more have a finished book by the end of it, because we're assholes. Basically. As he asked, how much do you struggle with titles? Because I know she's laboring over the title of her Nano novel right now. And how do you usually brainstorm for them? I'm not solving your problem for you.
I usually do title
I
generators
hate-
personally.
I hate titles. I hate book titles. I got easy with Melancholy Effect, I think. That was just
Because there was a scheme.
there was a scheme already. And even with the one I'm working on, which I think is going to be The Clearest Blue, is the title that it currently has. I don't know if it'll keep that
we'll
title,
see in the
but
face.
it too also kind of we kind of have a naming scheme for that because it's going to be one of many books. So that doesn't really help because it's not as simple as like just getting a title. I don't know how honestly I brainstorm for them.
I tend to think of what kind of theme do I want, how do I want the title to feel, how do I want the title to sound. I also tend to use generators, but I don't tend to use what the generator spits out. I can take what it spits out and go, how can I work in the pieces that I want into this? Lost Names is an example of that because it was something else when the generator spit it out, and I went, oh, but Lost Names sounds pretty okay, so maybe I'll go with that. The Melancholia project happened because of a Google search. So I really I abuse thesauruses a lot to try and find a better atmospheric word for whatever I'm going for. I did that the other day when I was redoing the title scheme for the Ashen Path books. But yeah, I normally start from a feeling and try to work that feeling into words, which is really not helpful. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's time.
Okay.
I think we basically ran it out. So, do you have parting remarks that you want to say? Anything you want to say?
Happy Halloween to everybody.
Happy Halloween.
Halloween's.
We're going to own Nano.
We're going to crush it.
Yeah, if you're in the region, Mouse and I will probably be at the Oak Creek Library a
Every
ton.
fucking day.
Probably as much as we can get there.
If you're in the region, do region things, go to these events. They're fantastic, really.
If you're in the region, Mouse will be bringing baked goods on Saturday to the kickoff party.
I will. I don't know what I'm bringing yet. But I bring baked goods at every available opportunity. But yeah, thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for doing all of this. If you're not already in the chat, coming out with us in chat, we'd love to struggle through Nano with you. Thank you for coming down to these live stream with us.
No.
We're sorry that we keep fucking dragging you to Milwaukee.
Feel free to tell me if you're in the Michigan area.
Yeah,
then
go
I can meet up with you.
Say hi to Alexa. It sucks and so
We're doing Connell Dell.
Yeah,
in
CAD's coming up, Connell Dell in December. There's also the
That's
Author
in
Fest
Chicago.
at the Oak Creek Library that's coming up in December. We're going to be there too.
That's the first week.
The first
First
Saturday in
Saturday
December,
or
I want to
something.
say, and then Connell Delete is the second Saturday, and we're going to be at Amkey. and we're gonna be Midwest because we're always at Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, come find us. We're around. Is that it?
Yeah.
I'm
If
gonna
you're
find
if you're
them.
not part of the WAD, then
Join
you can
us.
Find our Discord link on
On
the
Facebook.
page somewhere,
Stop being uncool.
There's no membership fee.
and come join us and talk about your words.
Oh, the other brother has joined us. Hi.
Hi.
You are late, but
The
that's
other
fine.
brother.
You'll see us.
Oh,
Travis has joined us.
Travis.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi, Travis.
Hi. Goodbye. But yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
We're gonna do the thing. Where's the end?
Have some spoops this season.
Live.
Yeah.